All right, welcome. Thank you all for being here. We are doing a restorative yoga class today. So, um, if you do a lot of heavy training or workouts, or perhaps you're just tired, this is a good practice for recovery. And we will be doing some restorative poses where we rest into them, but we're also going to be doing some gentle movements. It is all relatively gentle, but that doesn't mean that every pose or movement works for you. So please remember that you can modify, you can adapt, you can substitute, you can rest at any time, and listen for those times when I offer that, and take your own if I don't offer what you need. Um, we're going to use a lot of props today. Well, you might not need all of them, but I'm going to offer having them. And I'm going to use a bolster, but this could just be a big pillow or a rolled up blanket that you're using. Two yoga blocks if you have them. If you don't, you can get by without it, so no worries. The strap is going to be for if you are challenged to reach the foot in the quad stretch position. And then the biggest thing is we're going to be using the wall for part of the practice. And sometimes it's hard to find wall space. You can also use a door. If you shut the door, make sure it latches, or you're on the side of the door that if you're leaning into it, it's not going to fall open. Um, you might move yourself to be close to the wall now, or you can always come off the yoga mat and be on the wall for those portions of the class. You don't have to be on the yoga mat for those. So we are going to start in a resting position as we normally do on our backs. I'm going to offer using a couple of props, and we will use the blanket at the beginning here, and I'll also use it for padding my knees. So I'm going to make a little roll to put under the back of my neck with that blanket. I am not making a big roll, but I am making about 2 inches, 2.5 inches in diameter. That's going under the back of my neck. I'm going to use the bolster here and just have it underneath my knees so that I have my hips and knees slightly bent, but they get to rest here without needing to use any hip or thigh muscles to maintain the position. The roll under the back of the neck, you want it big enough to support the forward curve at the back of the neck, but not so big that it's shoving you forward. So supportive and comfortable, but not so big that it feels intrusive into the spine here at your neck. Arms could be where it's comfortable. Sometimes it is a grounded feeling, a feeling of safety and settled, placing hands on chest and belly. But sometimes it also feels good to bring the arms out, palms up, to start to open up the chest and let the backs of the shoulders release towards the floor. So finding a spot for your arms that feels natural and comfortable. Maybe you close your eyes here. We'll start in some stillness. And as we begin all practices, start to breathe through the nose, both inhale and exhale. And bring your focus to the breath. So whatever that means to you, your attention, whether you are noticing, observing the inhale, the exhale, the sensations in the body, the expansion, the contraction of belly and chest, or maybe it's the feel of the air moving in and out of your nostrils. Maybe it's even the sound of the breath. And you might even be able to notice that a little bit more as you start to lengthen and slow down your breathing. This lengthened breath is going to be the breath that carries us throughout the practice. So starting it here in stillness, helpful, then To know the sensation as we begin to layer on movement. Take the next few breaths to set an intention for your practice. And often I say, think of the reason that you've shown up today for the practice, which could very well be your intention. But since this is a restorative practice, I will offer this thought, this intention of finding ease. So instead of straining or efforting, finding ways to make it easier on your body, less effort, more release, more openness, less work. So that intention of finding ease, bring this thought to the front of your mind and breathe with intention. So we'll begin to move here. I'm going to move these props out of the way. So I'm just pushing that bolster, the pillow out away from me. I'm going to move that blanket out from underneath the head and begin moving by pulling the knees in towards you, hugging the shins, or maybe it's backs of thighs, and just start to gently rock side to side. If you've got some tightness, tension in the lower back, you might take this pretty easy to start and see how much movement feels okay to you. And if you're really tight through there, you might keep it here at this sort of small, conservative movement that feels good, that feels safe. If you'd like a little bit bigger twist, we'll bring the arms out to the sides, drop the legs over to one side. That might be enough, but more stretch, you'd stretch the top leg out towards the opposite wall. Bend the knee, roll onto your back, and you might need to make a little space as I too drop the legs to the other side. Maybe you stretch that top leg out. And going side to side, we inhale, twist, push the leg, exhale onto your back. And for me, this movement feels good. The no pausing, but if it would feel good to stay in that stretch for a few breaths, feel free to do that. And eventually we'll roll onto our right sides, or really whichever side you can face the screen here to see me, coming into a sort of fetal position here. So hips and knees are bent. We're going to be stretching, kind of lengthening out through one side of the body and then retracting again, pulling back in. So I'm going to stretch this top leg out and away from me, and I'm kind of jutting out through my heel. At the same time, I'm going to reach that same arm overhead and lengthen. If it feels good, roll towards your chest and gaze towards the floor. So you get even more length through that heel to hand. And then on the exhale, we're going to pull the knee forward and pull the elbow back. And maybe you turn to look up towards the ceiling. So we'll lengthen again. Inhale, stretch the leg and arm away from each other. Jut out through your heel so you don't get a calf cramp. And then exhale, pull the knee in and elbow back. Look up towards the ceiling. So we exhale, lengthen out, top leg and arm. Exhale, pull them in. I'm going to do a couple more. And then when you're ready, rolling onto the other side. So make sure you're supporting the head here so you're not straining through the neck. Bottom hip and knee stay bent, and you're going to stretch the top leg out, jut out through the heel. It's pushing away from the head. Top arm reaching overhead, you lengthen through there. You could stay like this or a little bit of twist, rotate chest and gaze towards the floor. You can lengthen a little bit more in the twist. And then exhale, pull the knee forward, elbow back, maybe gaze up towards the ceiling. So we inhale, stretch out, lengthen through top arm and leg, and then you exhale, pull them in. Maybe that little bit of twist. Do a few more here. Kind of wringing out the body. There's a little bit of that dish rag twist feel to this. Last one. Roll into your side, and then eventually rolling onto your belly. Coming into a twisting cobra. Cobra is a back bend, but I'm going to keep this more of an upper back bend with a little bit of rotation again. So I'm going to bring my arms out to the sides, elbows bent and pointing up towards the ceiling. I'm up on tented fingers. And inhale, lengthen the tailbone away from the head. Inhale, lift the head and chest. On the exhale, we're lowering one shoulder and looking away from it. Inhale, lengthen, lift the head and chest. Exhale, lower the other shoulder, look away. So on the inhale, we lengthen and lift into that little bit of a back bend, and then the exhale, we're twisting. We'll do that a few more times. One last twist. Come back through center, bring the hands under the shoulders. We're going to press ourselves up to hands and knees. Now I'm going to use my blanket for padding my knees, but that's just an optional prop here that's more for comfort. So if you're thinking about finding ease, sometimes making that blanket be part of the ease or the comfort here. We're finding child's or puppy pose. So child's pose is hips over heels, forehead resting down on the floor, or stacked hands or a block. And that pose works for a lot of us, a common yoga pose, resting yoga pose. But for those of you with osteoporosis in the spine or herniated disc, hip or knee issues, you might come into the puppy pose instead. So a safer position that won't compromise the spine or the joints if you've got something going on there. My forehead is resting down here. And if that doesn't rest easily, forehead on stacked hands or slide a yoga block underneath the forehead. Just take a few breaths here. Those lengthened breaths we started with. And then we're going to add a little side bend to this pose. So either child's or puppy, lift the head, walk the arms over to the left, and then make sure to reach out through that right arm. See if you can let that forehead rest on the floor again. If it doesn't get there easily, maybe a hand or putting a loose fist under the forehead. So that side bend, we're stretching through the lats, rib muscles, side waist. Notice how the breath might change the sensation of stretch. A common overuse injury in rowers is a rib fracture. So it's not because you fall or there's a trauma there at the rib. It's overuse, repetitive use of muscles that attach to the ribs. And it could be very sidelining. Stretching here through the side, getting some loosening up of those muscles that attach to the ribs here. And we'll go the other way. So lift up, walk it over to the right, stretch out through that left arm, forehead resting down on floor or fist, or maybe even a yoga block underneath might feel good, but lengthen out through that left arm. And then notice the breath. And sometimes that repetitive use, overtraining, not resting, not taking time to do restorative work or cross train can lead to that stress fracture in the ribs. Painful, and really the only treatment is stop rowing. It takes 6 weeks for bones to heal normally. We're going to bring this back in through center, and we're coming up here to the hands and knees. And you could always change the hand position to be loose fist instead of that flat palm, or take the weight completely off, forearms on the floor or on the block, but you'll have the elbow under the shoulder, cat and cow motions of the spine. So that's a rounding of the back on the exhale, tailbone, chin tucked. You're inhaling, lifting the tailbone, pulling the chest forward. And we move back and forth between those two movements. Exhale, rounding the back, belly button towards spine. Inhale, arching the back downward, chest is forward. Forward and back a few times. Moving in a comfortable range of motion here. So you're not trying to force or move past tightness or stiffness, just starting to coax it open a little bit. I'm going to bring that spine back into more of a neutral position here. I'm tucking my toes under. So I'm pausing here. This can be a challenging position if you've got a lot of stiffness in your toes, tightness in the soles of the feet, or maybe even knee issues. You might choose to do the toe rocking movement that we often do here. But if this feels okay, or maybe just make the movement smaller, toes stay tucked. We exhale, shift hips towards the heels, and then inhale, shift forward again. So we exhale, shift back. Inhale, shift forward. So you might start to feel that stretch in the soles of the feet, maybe even a little bit in the lower back here, depending. So you could keep it here grounded through the knees and the hands, or next time you shift back, come into a brief down dog. So hips go back, and then I lift the knees, heels towards the floor, down dog, and then lower the knees again, shift forward. So I'm just adding the down dog into that shift back, but optional for sure. Doing a little mobility for the toes, the ankle joints, and of course, maybe you're feeling that stretch in the calves. So you can keep going like this. Sometimes that brief down dog is easier than sustaining, but I'm going to stay up in my down dog here. Perhaps you readjust, feet are hip distance apart, hands are shoulder distance apart, fingers spread. And I'm pretty tight through the backs of my legs today. So I'm going to bend my knees a little bit more and reach my butt up and back, so I don't compromise the lengthening of my spine, and then add the movements of pedaling the feet or shaking the head, or rise up on toes, release the heels. Take a few more rounds of breath and movements within that down dog, or maybe lower the knees and take a break from down dog. We'll settle in that down dog, looking forward, stepping the left foot between the hands. And maybe it doesn't get there on your first go around. You could lower that right knee, bring that left hand forward to help it. Ankle underneath the knee here. So I'm going to rise up. That back knee is down, rising up into this upright position of the lunge. And you may want your A block on that left side. Not necessary, that will give you some options. Find the length in the spine, so tailbone towards the earth, top of the head up towards the sky. And you might already just lengthen tailbone now and start to feel stretch to the right hip flexors, top of the thigh. If you're not feeling much, bend the front knee, but keep the tailbone lengthening down. That's really the trick here. Otherwise, it's more compression in the low back. Left hand on the hip and the right arm up. We lengthen and subtle arcing up and over to that left side. So you could stay here. This could be enough side bend for you, or that left hand coming down on the block. This is also really nice if you have a chair or the wall nearby to lean into on that left side. Gaze staying forward. Try to keep the big arch out of the lower back. Take a few more breaths. Here's another side bend, right? That the breath might affect the sensation of the stretch, or the stretch might affect how much you could breathe in here. Rising up. And I'm going to bring both hands down to the floor, step it back into another down dog. Or maybe you come into child's or puppy pose instead. But if you're in that down dog, maybe a few more movements, a wag of the tail, a shake the head, release tension around the neck and shoulders. Settle in that down dog, looking forward. It'll be right foot between the hands, maybe helping it there. There's no rush. You know where we're going. Lowering that back knee. Hands on the front thigh to lift the torso, finding your balance. Back toes tucked or untucked, whatever works. Tailbone towards the earth, top of the head towards the sky. Maybe that's enough stretch on the front of the left hip and thigh, or bend that front knee to feel more hip flexor stretch. Maybe that block is on the tall side to the right of your hips, right hand on the hip, left arm up, over. So I lengthen. This is a subtle side bend here. You could stay with that. It could be far enough, or maybe you lean into that block on the right. I've got the wall here. That's even easier. So again, I'm finding ease. Having something even more solid to lean into allows me to relax into the stretch a little bit more. Feel that breath. Rise back up. Now bring both hands to the floor around that front foot. We're stepping the back foot forward to find a forward fold. And there are a few options here. Having a little or a generous bend in the knees, upper body draped over, hands to the floor, or on yoga blocks here. Or if you were dealing with herniated disc, or you have had one and you want to prevent it from happening again, osteoporosis, or you're just really tight, try this version, feet wide, butt back, forearms on the thighs. And you could add a little sway to either of these poses. If you're in that draped over or called ragdoll fold, you could hold elbows here. Maybe you shake that head out like you're saying no or nodding yes. To add a little bit more release in the upper back, the neck, the shoulders. Bend the knees, look forward, strong legs. You're inhaling to rise up. If it feels good, reach up, palms together, exhale, hands to prayer at your heart. We'll let this go. Shake up your wrists and roll the shoulders. So I'm going to use the wall for the next 3 or 4 poses and sequences here. So if you need to make some space, if you need to move over to the wall and bring your computer or whatever you're watching on with you. And again, if you don't have a big wall space that's not covered by furniture, a door works for this. So close the door, make sure it latches, or you're on the side that it's not going to open if the door doesn't latch, and because we're going to be leaning our weight against it. So for the first one, this is one we often do lying on the floor face up, but I'm going to do this here at the wall. So this is pelvic tilt, moving into a bridge pose here. So I'm going to lean against the wall. My butt, my shoulders, head, if possible, is on the wall here. My feet are about 12 inches, give or take, away from the wall. A tiny bend to both knees. So I'm not in like a deep wall squat. My quads are working a little bit, but not a whole lot. Notice here with the butt and the shoulders on the wall, there's a gap between your low back and the wall. So we're going to take up that gap by pressing the low back into the wall, the belly button towards spine. the tailbone tips away, but the back of my hips and pelvis stay on the wall. And then I release that. Then you get that space between the low back and the wall again. So we exhale, flatten the low back into the wall, tailbone tipping towards the room, and then inhale, release that. So keeping the hips, shoulders on the wall. I'm going to do a few more of those backward pelvic tilts. Backward meaning the pelvis is tipping backward. All right, relaxing there. You could keep it at that. Sometimes that pelvic tilt can feel really good to the lower back. Or you could turn this into a flowing bridge. So we'll bring the arms down onto the wall, and I'm going to tip that tailbone away. So I start with that backward pelvic tilt, and then I lift my hips away from the wall, the lower back away, then the upper back away from the wall. So it's just my arms, shoulders, and head on the wall. And then I'm going to reverse that. Exhale, lower the upper back, the middle back, press the lower back into the wall, and then bring the hips to it. And do that again. So tip the tailbone up, inhale, roll up the spine. So it comes away from the wall, except for the shoulders and the head. And then exhale, roll the spine back down. We'll do a couple more. So you're really trying to work on feeling that articulation between each vertebra. So as if you were laying each vertebra down one at a time on the wall and then peeling it up away from the wall in that same way. And we'll do one more. All right, coming up, pushing away from the wall here. Maybe take a few backward shoulder rolls. So you could do this next part at the wall. I'm going to use a chair because I want you to see me from the profile point of this. And if I did it at the wall, you would just see my backside and not really see what I'm doing here. So this is going to be a sun salutation at the wall or at the chair. I'm going to be having my hands at the back of the chair here. So you could use the chair too for this as well. My favorite place to do this is at the kitchen countertop. That's like a really nice level. We're first going to do the down dog at the wall or down dog at the chair. So if you're at the wall, you're going to place your hands on the wall about shoulder height and shoulder width apart. If you're at the chair, hands are on the back of the chair. Walk the feet back and start to hinge from the hips. So your spine is staying long. And for me, I'm a little tight in my hamstring, so I have to bend my knees to keep the back from rounding up. So I'm not coming into that cat position. So bend the knees enough to lengthen through the spine. See if you can let the head relax between the arms. We'll stay here for a few breaths, and similar to pedaling the feet, except the feet stay flat, we're going to push one hip back, the opposite knee bends, and then push the other hip back, the opposite knee bends, and we go a few times here, just kind of lengthening out through the side body, those muscles that run parallel to the spine and the waist, even some of those rib and lats here, rib muscles, intercostals in the lats. We'll bring this back in through center. Look forward. If you're kind of far away, you can walk it forward and come on up to stand. Again, maybe take a couple of backward shoulder rolls. So that standing down dog is going to happen twice in the sequence of I'm air quoting, a sun salutation here. A very gentle version of sun salutation. It's actually one of my favorite ones. So I'm sitting a few feet back from the chair. You're a few feet back from the wall or whatever surface you're using. Inhale, get taller, reach the arms up. On the exhale, hands come to that wall, shoulder height, or to the back of the chair. Maybe you need to adjust your walking the feet back. You're finding that standing down dog, maybe a bend to the knees. On your inhale, step 1 foot forward, bend that front knee, lift the chest. We're going to stay here a moment. Exhale, relax the shoulders away from the ears. Inhale, find length, crown of the head, the top of the head reaching up. And then on the exhale, step it back into that standing down dog, hinging at the hips, spine long. Inhale, step the other foot forward. Bend that front knee. Lift the chest. We're going to stay here for a breath. Exhale, relax the shoulders. Inhale, reach the top of the head up. We exhale, step it back into that down dog. So I guess we do 3 of those. We're going to walk the feet forward here. Bend the knees a little. Inhale, rise up to stand, reach up. Exhale, hands to prayer at your heart. We'll let this go. Shake it out. Roll the shoulders. I'm going to do that again. And now you know where we're going with it. Inhale, get taller, reach up. Exhale, find that down dog, that standing down dog. Hips back, maybe a little bend to the knees. Inhale, step forward with one foot, bend the knee, lift the chest. Exhale, shoulders relax. Inhale, top of the head reaches up and find space in the spine. Exhale, step it back into that standing down dog. Inhale, other foot forward, bend that knee, lift the chest. Exhale, relax the shoulders. Inhale, top of the head reaching up. Exhale, step it back into the down dog. Walk forward a little bit, bend the knees. Inhale, rise up to stand, reaching up. Exhale, hands to prayer. Let this go. Shake out the wrists, roll the shoulders. All right, so I'm not going to use the wall for the next one, actually not until the end again. If you want to come back onto your mat for this, you can, or you could stay at the wall. So we are working the feet here a little bit. So our feet do a lot for us, obviously, to hold our weight all day. They balance us, they carry us from one spot to the other, but we often really don't pay attention to them. Or we hide them in our shoes, or we cram them in there. So let's do a little, make some space here for our toes. So I'm going to have you stand feet hip distance or a little wider if that feels comfortable. Lift all 10 toes, spread them out. Place them down, spread out, lowering one toe at a time if you can, but trying to make some space between your toes. And maybe on the first few, you're looking at your feet, lift and spread. Place them down, spread out. See if you can see some yoga mat or floor between your toes here. Once you've done a few, try it without looking at your feet. And this can be a challenging movement. This tiny little movement can be challenging to actually feel like you can effectively make this movement here with your toes. So if this is something new, if you haven't done these exercises before, it can be very challenging because you might not have a well-worn pathway from your brain to your toes. But the more you practice this, the easier it can get. And just notice, we are spreading the toes out, but feel how lifted up your arches are away from the floor. So we're strengthening the muscles that support the skeletal arch. And if you're not looking at your feet, notice how tall, how stable, how strong you are. And I didn't even cue that tailbone down, top of the head up. You went there just by the strength and the energetic pull of your feet upward. All right, let this go. Shake out the legs. I am going to use the wall here, but it is not necessary. It could be a chair. You may not need it at all. This is a top of the foot stretch. So that motion we just did used the muscles that go up to the front of the shin. So we're going to give those muscles a little stretch. I'm bringing that foot back, and I have the tops of my toes, like the toenail part of my toes, on the floor. It's not a big step back. I'm just placing it there. Now make sure you relax the calf and the sole of the foot. Otherwise, you're going to get a toe cramp or a calf cramp here. So for me, just being in this position, I feel that stretch on the front of the ankle, the front of the shin, the top of the foot. So when you are strapped in or your shoes are in the boat, and those front shin muscles are working, especially when you're coming back into the finish, and they might be working some as you start to tip that pelvis forward and you're going from the finish back into the catch. So this might feel like a good stretch to you here. We're going to let that go, shake it out, and then we're going to switch and do that on the other side. And just make sure that it's the front of the toes or the top of the toes, whatever, the toenail part of your toes that's there. Keep the calf, keep the sole of the foot, relax the toes, relax here. Otherwise, you tend to kind of go in a cramp, and just looking for that sensation of stretch on the shin, front of the ankle, maybe top of the foot. There's a lot of fascia. There's a lot of connective tissue here. So the stretch might feel a little different. Sometimes that sensation of stretching the fascia feels different, and I'm not even sure how to describe it. It's a little bit of a burny sensation, rather, but not uncomfortable burning, just a different sensation than muscle stretching. All right, we're going to let this go, shaking that out. Come on back to the mat. If you have those yoga blocks, make sure they're close to the front. And I'm gonna just take a big step back with my left foot, bring that back knee down. So I'm gonna bring the blocks in here to the inside of my right foot, and I'm gonna toe heel that right foot out. And I even have that foot coming up off the yoga mat. If you can, let the hips sink down and forward, and you might need to make a little more space between the back knee and that front foot. Reach the top of the head up towards the ceiling. So here we are in this lizard pose position. You might be feeling that openness or stretch through the left hip flexor, maybe the right hamstrings or inner thigh here. And this may be as far as you want to go with this. You could try these other options. This is the upright one, protective of the spine. A little kind of deeper fold in would be bring the hands down lower side of the blocks or hands to the floor. That could be as far as you want to go, or forearms to the blocks or forearms to the floor. Make sure you haven't lost the breath. You could stay with this here or lift the back knee up. If you have that back knee up, sometimes like to rock forward and back over those toes a little bit. So lots of variations of this lizard, and maybe you took the first one or the second one or the third one. You may not be in this more extreme version. So you're looking for ease as opposed to how far can I push? How hard can I work? Which might feel foreign. All right, we're going to come up here on the hands, and we're switching sides. So I'm going to bring that right knee back and step that left foot forward. That foot is wider than the hip, so you might even have the foot off the mat, or maybe the heel is on the mat, the toes are turned out. Hands, shoulders on the inside of that front foot. Press into the hands to lengthen that spine. Maybe the hips sink down and forward. This is actually my favorite variation of lizard right here, this upright version. You could stay with this. This is the one that feels the best to me. But I'm going to give you some other options here because maybe you like the other options. You could bring the hands down lower sides of the blocks. You could bring the hands down to the floor here, or forearms to the blocks or the floor. I don't have enough flexibility to go forearms on the floor, so I'm going to pause here. You could stay with this, or option to lift the back knee. None of these are progressions. They're just variations. They're different ways of experiencing stretch or openness. Maybe you do a little forward, backward shift if you have that back knee up. All right, I'm going to lower that back knee and bring the front foot back here. And then from here, coming on to my belly again. And I'm coming into a restorative position. I call it the frog leg. We're just doing one side at a time. So we're going to bring that left knee out to the side in the frog leg position. So my left inner knee is resting here on the floor. You could bring your arms forward to let the head rest on them, or cheek resting on the floor, or find whatever position works for you here. And sometimes I have to change this angle of the leg to feel comfortable in my hips. So sometimes knee higher feels better, sometimes lower, sometimes foot in or foot out feels better. So make any adjustments you need to here. Sometimes it's too much inner thigh stretch, so I have to roll away from it a little bit or slide a blanket underneath that inner knee for comfort, for the ease part of this. And then start to slow your breathing down, coming back to that lengthened breath we started with. I have you here in this position, not so that you feel stretched or the muscles are engaging in a certain way, but so that the muscles on the back of that left hip get to relax. This is both the opposite of stretching those muscles and the opposite of engaging or contracting them. This is the off switch for the muscles on the back of that left hip. So the glute maximus is one of them. Piriformis is another one. That piriformis lies on top of the sciatic nerve. If that muscle tenses or spasms, often you can get nerve problems down the leg. So this is a pose that I often give to my clients with those, my physical therapy clients with those problems. Take a few more lengthened breaths. So I'm going to keep that left knee bent this way, but I'm going to roll onto my right side, and that left knee will come in a little closer. I'm using my arm to support the head, but you could put a yoga block underneath there if you wanted to. If the top hip doesn't like that, a yoga block under that knee can feel nice here. So this top leg gets to rest, and we're going to do the quad stretch of the bottom leg. So bend that right knee or the bottom leg, reach back with the top hand to find that foot. So often people get confused with this one. So it's the bottom leg we're stretching, and it's the top hand that's holding. And if you need a strap here to find that foot, it's a good place to add it in. So often people are like, I'm reaching really hard. I got the foot. Okay, hold it here. And it feels like pain, or it's really intense, or the knee hurts, or the hamstrings cramp. So sometimes finding ease means using a prop like the strap so that you're not being so intense with the position that you're feeling the stretch and the release, but you are not feeling discomfort, which is not appropriate in stretch. By that, I mean it's counterproductive and potentially injury causing. So we're going to let that foot go. We're rolling onto the belly again with both legs straight this time. And then we're coming onto the other side with the frog leg. So that right knee coming out, inner knee resting on the floor, head and arms where it feels comfortable to you. I'm just raising my head a little bit so that you can hear me better. I'm not muffled by the floor as much. Make any adjustments you need with that right leg. Sometimes letting that left foot or whichever leg is straight rest here. You can get a toe cramp. You can always tuck those toes under or put something like a blanket underneath the front of the ankle. And slow the breathing down. That communicates with the nervous system to say, hey, it's all right. There's nothing scary happening here. No reason to be on high alert. And that can encourage the muscles to relax. Coming back to your intention for the practice, whether you set your own or the one about finding ease. Can you find a little more ease right here? So we're gonna roll onto our left side, right? That right knee is gonna stay bent. Just roll to your side. You might even roll partway off your mat. That right knee shin will slide with you. Support the head here with the arm or use a yoga block. Bend the bottom knee, reach back with that hand or the strap to find the foot. So we're getting a quad stretch on that left side, the bottom leg. So front of the hip, thigh, opening up, lengthening out, stretching, however you want to, whatever word you want to apply to that sensation. Still with that lengthened breath. We're going to release that leg, straighten both legs, and roll onto your belly. Stacking the hands and letting the forehead rest here. If that's not comfortable, turning your head, let the cheek rest on the floor. You do not need to see me for this. We're just breathing, so there's nothing, no movement. I'm going to lift my head just so it's a little easier to hear me, but you're staying in that face down position. Coming back to that breath again, that lengthened breath. Notice here in the belly down position, when you breathe in, that expansion can't really come in the front of the body. The rib cage, the belly can't expand forward, but it doesn't mean it stops us from breathing. The expansion comes somewhere else. We borrow it on the sides of our torso, on the back. So notice when you breathe in, the ribs expand outward, left and right, upward towards the ceiling. As you breathe out, it all just sinks inward, downward towards the floor. Notice when you breathe in, the low back expands, and when you breathe out, it sinks inward, downward towards the earth. Take a few more of these lengthened breaths. Feel the lower ribs, the belly pressing into the floor as you feel the back body expand. And then release downward on the exhale. And a few more of these breaths. This breath exercise, breathing exercise called crocodile breath. Think about a crocodile in the belly, rib cage flat on the ground. Lengthened breath, belly breathing as we're doing here. Again, calming to the nervous system. Puts you more in the rest, digest, heal part of the automatic nervous system and less in the fight or flight. Recovery, healing, rest, you need to be in that restful part of the nervous system. Take one more breath here. All right. So we're coming up. I'm going to use the wall again. I'm coming into a legs up the wall position. So to do this, I usually come up next to the wall and sit sideways. If I try to scooch on my back, it's a very awkward inchworming on my back. So if you sit sideways, you can get a little bit closer to the wall, and then you pivot on your butt and sweep the feet up onto the wall. What also works is if you're in an open door, sit down right in the center of that doorway, and then you put your feet up on either side of the door here. So that's also a way to work this one. If you're really tight in your hamstrings, you might need to scoot your butt away from the wall a little bit, especially on this first one, because we're going to do this reclined pigeon or the figure four stretch here. So I'm going to have you cross one ankle over the other knee. And then that heel that's still on the wall, we're going to start to slowly slide it down. And you're pausing when you feel that stretch in the buttocks and the outer hip of that top leg here. That's one of my favorite variations of the stretch because look, Ma, no hands, my neck, my shoulders don't get jacked up in this position. And there's an option to kind of give, I was going to say make this a little bit, make this a little more intense, but it just kind of changes it. So I'm going to take my hand and gently push that knee away from me. And you can decide if this feels good or not. If it's bothersome to the knee, please stop. But if it creates a little bit more space in the front of the hip, sometimes that's a welcome sensation in this stretch as opposed to a very compact, compressed position on the front of the hip, especially if you have hip impingement or very tight hip flexors, that can happen there. And take another couple breaths. So now we're stretching that glute maximus, the piriformis, other little rotator muscles underneath there that getting stretched in this position when we relax in the frog leg. And then we're going to switch legs. So I'm going to bring that heel up on, cross the other ankle over. It'd be different on this side. That heel that's on the wall, we're going to slowly slide it down. So I'm tighter on my right side. This one, I can't go as far. You could pause, see what you feel, make sure it feels like stretch and not pain, or not even bordering on pain. You want to be away from that. So I'm just realizing that's a little closer to pain than I like. So I'm going to ease up. Maybe you take that hand and gently push the knee away or the thigh away. See if that feels good. If not, let it go. Take a few breaths right here. Let this go. Bring both feet up on the wall. Now I'm going to come into reclined twist. I'm going to bend my knees, have my feet flat on the wall, the arms out. Walk your feet to the left so they come down to the floor so that the knees, the feet rest on the floor. Or if that's an uncomfortable position, put something underneath the knees here. Gaze up or head turning away from your legs. Can you find ease somewhere or more ease in this pose? Noticing if you're kind of holding in your hips, can you relax that? Just notice I was trying to keep my knees in line with each other. I'm just letting that go. Finding ease with the breath. And then we're going to walk the feet up again and then over to the other side. So I'm walking my feet to the right. Maybe the legs rest down there. Maybe you need some kind of prop underneath. Maybe that prop just gives you that little bit of ease, allows you to relax into this more. Actually makes it more effective when you can relax into the stretch as opposed to your body feeling like it wants to resist. And turning that head away. Where can you find a little more ease in your body? Maybe it's the hips, low back. Maybe it's your jaw that you're clenching. I'm going to walk my feet back up through center. I'm going to come into Shavasana here in legs up the wall position. This is one of my favorites, so I like being here, but you may have a different relaxation position you'd rather be in. I'm going to add even more elevation. I'm going to use my bolster. It could be the folded blanket, but I'm going to lift my hips and slide that prop underneath them. And I get my pelvis elevated, and I get even more benefit from this mild inversion here. Legs could be straight up, straddle, ankle crossed, bent a little bit, whatever is comfortable to you here. And my body is sort of, my breathing, I did it without even thinking about it. I took that inhale through the nose, sighed out the exhale through open mouth. Do that again. Let the breath go. Allow the body to rest, to be supported by the earth or the props or the wall. Resting here for the next few minutes. If you have those legs elevated, this is very restorative to the lower body, this pose, gravity, pulling excess fluid that might have accumulated in the lower body from injury, like inflammation, or inflammation from work, from workout, distance rowing, from lifting, from strength training, from just being on your feet, or sometimes travel takes that on me, even though it's not terribly active. The sitting is one of my favorite things to do at the end of the day. Just rest here for the next few minutes. So, one benefit of virtual yoga is you can stay longer in your shavasana, your relaxation. So, feel free to turn me off and stay here longer. If you're ready to move on, you might lift up to take that prop out from under the hips. Start to deepen the breath, maybe add some movements with the hands, the feet, turning the head. And then you'll bend the knees, roll to your side. Pause for a moment here on your side. Appreciating the opportunity to find ease in your body. Feeling appreciation for your body, your breath, your health, your yoga practice. Being gentle, press up to a seated position. Thank you all for being here, for sharing your practice and your energy. The light in me honors the light in each of you. Namaste. Thank you. Please let me know if you have any questions, comments.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
You're welcome.